Good day. A lot of people know about the Roman Empire. Many people will not even know that the Roman Empire lasted way beyond the 400 and 500 BC, but also extended till the 14th century and 15th century. The Roman Empire moved to the east and became the Eastern Roman Empire or Byzantium. And Byzantium continued long after almost 1,000 years after the Roman Empire that we know had expired. And Byzantium is modern day Turkey, and the city of Constantinople was the city that was coveted by a lot of countries and a lot of people and a lot of generals. Well, eventually that city fell. It fell to a great warrior called Mehmed II. Mehmed II is the one who conquered and brought about the end of the Eastern Roman Empire and the Byzantium as we know it today. And today, the city of Istanbul in Turkey bears testimony to his great achievement because when he conquered it, he changed it into being a Muslim city. Today, Turkey is a country we hear so much about, if for nothing else, because of their belligerent and cantankerous President Erdogan. But what is bringing this introduction? When Mehmet was conquering Byzantium and the city of Constantinople then, he had one weapon system that changed everything for him. That system was the basilic. It was a cannon, a big, huge cannon by which he was able to breach the very, very fortified wall of Constantinople. That weapon system was built for him by an Hungarian father and son. The father then was called Orban. We know an of Orban now in modern day times. He was Hungarian. Basilic did the most damage to the wall that gave protection to the people of Constantinople to the point where the emperor and finally Mehmet conquered it in 1453. If you go to Istanbul and you visit Istanbul, you will see so many layers of history. You will see Greek history, you will see Roman history, you will see the history of Byzantium, and you will see the history of the Ottoman Empire. I am a big student of the Ottoman Empire. I've always loved that empire. And my historical hero from that empire is Suleiman the Magnificent. So, what makes Turkey? How does that tie in into modern day Turkey? You see, modern day Turkey has become um, a case study for better word, a case study in the fact that this country has changed modern warfare in their own little way and muzzled their way into being one of the biggest arms manufacturers and sellers in the world. But until recently, they weren't known to be that. But in recent times, due to the involvement of one company called Bayrakat and the drones they made called the TB2 particularly drones. They now have other suites of drones, Avinci, but then the TB2 was so decisive in helping the Azerbaijanis win the Armenia against Armenia in the Nagorno-Karabakh war. They won that war because they were using these TB2 drones against a lot of Armenian assets, mainly Russian tanks then, and they were using TB drones. I think that this happened in 2019. The, the involvement of Turkey too in the confusion and the crisis in Libya was very telling when General Khalifa Haftar was trying to get and conquer the whole, he left Benghazi and was trying to conquer the whole of Libya, unify it after the breakdown of Libya following the bombing and the eventual overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi. It didn't succeed. The Turks stood behind the national government in Libya, and there again, TB2 was very decisive in making sure that Haftar withdrew back to Benghazi. In recent times, in the Ukrainian war, just at the onset of it, in the first opening stages of the special military operation, as Putin will call it, in I think 24th of February of 2022, around then, the Ukrainians, while the Russians were trying to get to Kyiv, Ukrainians used the TB2 very decisively against the Russians, created confusion among huge tank columns, and destroyed a lot of Russian tanks to the point where the Russians finally withdrew from Kyiv and went and started to continue their campaign in the eastern part of Ukraine. Turkey was in the news recently. This same Bayrokat was in the news recently when I saw them that they had bought an old established Italian company called Piaggio Aviation. We're seeing a situation now where a company, a company from a country you will call a developing or a third world country is buying over a legacy air defense supplier from Italy. The world is really changing. Why do I say this? The world is changing before our eyes because weapon systems have now become very, very instrumental in shaping the modern day warfare, and drones are one of those modern warfare systems. Good day and welcome to my channel, Ebima Amungo's Perspective on Global Affairs. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. If you have any comment regarding the opinions I express in this video, please leave them in the comment section. Like and share. Recently, a journalist in America here asked President Donald Trump, regarding the situation in Ukraine. Ukraine is being peppered, bombed, and blasted repeatedly by huge, humongous volumes of Russian drones and Russian missiles. And in a show of solidarity or in a show of compassion to the Ukrainians, President Trump relented from his pledge not to deliver arms to them again, and he announced that defensive weapons will be going to Ukraine. The defensive weapons, I suppose, are going to be Patriot missile systems that will supposedly help the Ukrainians to withstand the onslaught of Russian drones. It was not the Russians who introduced drone warfare to this war between Ukraine and Russia. It was actually the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians still use drones very effectively. It's their mainstay because as they lose personnel, they don't have a lot of personnel to stave off the rampaging Russians. Their use of drones has been effective and deadly. And it has changed warfare, and it has also changed the way people perceive warfare, even in covert operations like the one that was held in Operation Spiderweb, when drones were used in bringing down a vast number or destroying a vast number of the strategic bombing fleet, nuclear bombing fleet of Russia. That same use of drones was also used in Iran in taking out their air defense systems, but these were covert operations. But even in standoff operations, drones hold off oncoming military mechanized columns. These days, in the Ukraine war, we don't hear so much again about the involvement of mechanized columns in the front. Tanks are now being put behind, while the infantry who finds a way using motorbikes. Bikes, funny enough, have become the main way by which territories grabbed and penetrated now in the Ukraine war. So drones have really changed the way the world is. And it was the Iranian drones and the Russian drones and all these drones that we see being used in warfare in modern times that are changing the way we see war. Because the Russians were the ones who first of all used the Iranian Shahid drones. Their purpose was very strategic. Their purpose was to swarm the air defense systems, Patriot missile systems, and interceptor systems of Ukraine, donated to them by the NATO bloc and NATO alliance. In also using this against Israel during the 12-day war, they swarmed the Israeli air defense system, the well-vaunted dome, Iron Dome, and they used the drones, slow moving, to first of all get those interceptors popping all around before they brought in their Fatah and their fatal hypersonic missiles to rain heavily on Israel and destroy a lot of Israeli military targets. So we have seen that drones have changed the way the world fights war. And Turkey now, going back to the Bay record, they've seen their drones being used not only in Ukraine, not only in Nagorno-Karabakh, not only in Libya, but also even in Ethiopia. It is now proven. And now they've even iterated and upgraded, and now they have systems that have jet engines. So we are seeing that drones are the main weapons now. And air defense systems somehow have not cracked the drone puzzle because Ukraine still finds a way to give huge damages inside Russia, deep inside Russia. They still use the drones they now make for themselves, their own indigenous drones, and destroy refineries. They destroy power plants deep inside Russia. They still cause a lot of damage because the air defense systems have not been configured and designed to be part of this new reality of drone warfare. The drone warfare is, as it stands, the domain, ironically, of China. China has not been part of any war in recent times. China was part of Operation Sindor between Egypt and Pakistan because China gave weapon systems to Pakistan that they used in bringing down Western French planes, particularly, that was being used by the Indians, Raphael. They claim to have shot quite a number of them, 5 planes, and they were using the Chinese J-10 using PN-15 missiles. It's a surface-to-air missiles, and they took out a lot of all these um, the Indian planes. They took them out. The Indians are not saying how many exactly. The Pakistanis are claiming that they shot down well over 5 of such planes. But the victim was the Raphael, and it has affected the sale of the Raphael. In fact, recently the Chinese haven't gotten the sales on the win in their sales, went to the Paris Air Show to show off a whole suite of Chinese planes that they now are trying to sell to the world. They had in display there the J-10C. They also had the J-35. They had the J-20, and they had the helicopters. And if you live in the Middle East, you will be well aware of some of the Chinese drones, the big ones, the attack drones, just like the MJ Reaper. It's called the Wulong. Sometimes when I will drive around Saudi Arabia, I used to see them. So the Chinese are in the game. They are trying to now become one of the world's preeminent arms sellers, and their expertise in drones cannot be challenged. But we should understand that the Chinese, with the company called DJI, they are the ones who own almost all the technology regarding drones. Nobody comes close to them. The drones being used in Ukraine and in Russia all have Chinese components in it. The whole supply chain for drones is in the hands of China. And the competence and know-how and the electronic makeup of those drones is all in China's hands. It is for that reason that the American government, in budgeting for the big, beautiful bill, did make a lot of provisions for drone warfare. They realized that drone warfare is the future. So even though Ukraine is asking for Patriot missile systems because of the unrelenting assault by uh, um, by Russian ballistic missiles, including the Kinjal, including the Iskander, they still know that the problem they have now is the drones that they can't stop, the Guarantoo drones, modified Shahid drones that are now a terror to the people of Ukraine, because now the Russians are producing these drones at an industrial scale. Some say probably 500 a day. and they are using up large amounts of them in attacking Ukraine. So the Chinese control that whole domain. So and the Americans have now come to wake up that systems like the THAAD systems like the Patriot missile systems may just not be sufficient for modern day warfare. It may explain why the budgeting for drones was very high, but not just the budgeting for drones. I think there's a need within Pentagon. There's a need and there's a pause for appraisal as to the reality of modern day warfare. Because it has been repeatedly said that every time a scenario is put in American attacking China or trying to um, invade China, the Americans, when they simulate war games with China, they always lose in the South China Sea because the Chinese are defensive. They're not planning on attacking anybody. They're just planning on defending their territory. And with their competence in hypersonic missiles, they are one of the three countries in the world who are known to operate vast amounts of hypersonic missiles. Them, the Russians, and the Iranians. We saw the use of hypersonic missiles in the 12-day war. The Chinese have vast amounts of them. But even if they don't have very vast quantities, their industrial might, that ability to produce more, is a big worry now. Aircraft carriers can't survive them because they have those, I think they have DF 500 and 400 missile systems that can come and destroy those aircraft carriers right where they are, and nothing can stop them. That's why they are called hypersonic. They travel at 10 times, 12 times at the speed of sound. Warfare has changed. So following the meeting, the phone discussion between President Trump and President Zelensky, weapons were being promised to Ukraine, but the Americans said it that they will look through their inventory and see what they can spare for Ukraine. Following the 12-day war also, it is now becoming very clear that Iran has to do something about its air defense systems. Already we know its competence in drones. And if it comes to air defense systems, it has just two choices, Russia or China. Most people feel they will go for China. In fact, I just read today that they've bought some Chinese weapon systems, though not confirmed. They also have stories that they've bought Russian planes, S-35, and Chinese J-10s, 40 of them. The Iranians are keeping their investments in new weapon systems and new ways of securing themselves much closer to their hearts this time around because they don't know that they've seen that warfare has changed. There's a lot of covert operations that can just take out your systems. So it's best you keep your systems secret now, probably underground. So the whole crux of this video is about the weapon systems that are redefining the world, the weapon systems that are giving countries advantages. Because we should understand that it is when you have these weapon systems that you have a voice, a say in geopolitics. The Tigray War was very hard for the Ethiopians until they got the TB2, and they used it very effectively against the Tigray. The Ethiopian government used it very effectively against the Tigray rebels. The same too, the campaign of Khalifa Haftar was stopped dead in its track on its way to Tripoli by drones and by weapon systems. The Israelis found out the hard way that the weapon systems that they prepared for were not the ones that came at them and destroyed very, very destructively the cities of Israel in Haifa, the infrastructures in Haifa, the seaport, the Ben Gurion airport. The weapon systems have really changed. Drone has a part in it, and these weapon systems, including missiles, hypersonic missiles, are redefining the way we see the world. And those countries that own them, produce them, sell them are the countries that shape the geopolitics in the world. Let's not forget that while I was concentrating on drone, the mainstay of most of these other countries have remained their nuclear weapon arsenal, their nuclear submarine arsenal, because they must have three forms of delivery of those nuclear weapon systems. And they have nuclear submarines, they have aircraft carriers, they have their strategic bombing fleet, and they have intercontinental ballistic missiles. For those countries that have all three of them, they operate on a bigger, different league. But for the other countries that want to make statements among their neighbors, like India, like Brazil, like even Nigeria too, they got some Turkish drones too. Any country that wants to be able to stave off being attacked and don't need to spend too much if you don't have all the technology, you may just want to the be friends with the Turks, the Chinese, and who knows, possibly also the Iranians. This is where I end my video for today. If you have any comment, please leave them in the comment section. If you can like and you can share. Thank you. Until I see you in my next video.